a week, what can you get done with once a week strength training? Why even bother? Why not go shoot golf instead or do something else? But there's proven techniques and tactics behind this that get results. So it does work, and we've got Coach Gallagher here. He's going to tell us all about it.
Right.
One of the first things we want to talk about here is let's make a comparison between volume training and the minimalistic intensity training, like comparing Arnold's 700 sets a week to Kirk Karwoski's 70 sets a week. So talk us through that, Marty.
Okay. Well, I think we should back up. And I mean, the once a week training was born out of necessity, right? You've got a lot of guys who work really hard jobs during the week, be it construction or some type of manual physical labor, and classically they would rest up on Saturday, eat up, rest up on Saturday, and then get together on Sunday and train. And and you work through all three lifts: squat, bench, deadlift. If you have any gas left over, maybe do some arms, maybe do some overhead pressing, right? But that's it, because during the week, life and work and circumstance and family, it all conspires, and it's either you get one time a week to train or you get nothing. And I will tell you from personal experience that you can make progress on that. I was in 1989, I was ramrodding a warehouse. I had 25 guys under my control. That's a scary thought. A steel warehouse in Milford, Connecticut. And it was a nightmare from Monday through Friday. I was just there, 16 hours a day with these freaking alcoholic steel workers.
They're not listening. Go ahead.
Oh, they were thugs. It was impossible, right? So so I would rest up and eat up on Saturday. Then I trained with Kenny Fantano, the greatest bench presser I've ever worked with, but great squatter, incredible. Him and his crew. This guy had 3 600-pound benchers in a gym with 50 members, right? 3 600-pound benchers, 3 900-pound squatters, and I was just so lucky to fall in with those guys. But I trained once a week, and I won the Connecticut State Drug-Free Championship that year with a 660 squat at 220, 350 bench, and a 680 deadlift. Not bad, right?
These guys,
right?
All these guys you were training with were doing the once a week, and that's where you kind of picked it up.
Kenny would come in like 3 days later and do heavy inclines. But the rest of the guys, I mean, they were like Danny D'Errico. He had a fencing company. He was not coming in during the week. He had no time. And the same with Gene Dene and all the top guys. They just, for whatever reason, they couldn't do it. But kicked ass on Sunday, I'll tell you that, right? I mean, everybody worked until you're a half step away from dying because you're lifting in front of them, right?
Now, on average, how long were your lifting sessions on Sundays?
Well, you'd have maybe 5 guys optimally you'd have 4 or 5 guys per platform. If you have more than that, it takes too long to rotate when you're doing squat, bench, deadlift. You got to get a rhythm in the rotation of the training partners. So 4 to 5 experienced guys are ideal. 3 to 4 is even better. But anyway, so you rotate through until you're done. But for a guy who's squatting whatever 850 for 5, it takes a while to get there.
Right.
I mean, it might be 6 sets before you get to your top set. 6 warm-up sets, and then it's your all-out set, right? Because you're starting so high. So these sessions would last forever. I mean, they would last 3 hours.
Okay, quick question on the warm-ups. How many reps would you guys typically do on the warm-up as you're building up to your top set?
Everybody would be different, but I never saw anybody do more than 10 reps in anything.
Okay.
Ever.
And I guess that would decrease, obviously, as you got heavier and heavier.
I would say 80% of what we did was 5 reps or less.
Yeah. Yeah, you're just trying to get the ligaments and everything just warmed up for that all-out set.
Yeah, so, I don't know if they'd even go 135. They might go, 255, hundreds on each side, right? 455, another set of hundreds on each side. 655, another set of hundreds on each side. 45, 745, go up like that, right? And even then, it takes a guy who's squatting 850, 6 warm-up sets to get there. Same in the bench. If they're benching 500 plus, well, you're certainly going to have 5 warm-up sets, before you hit your top set. Are you going to hit any back-off sets? Are you going to do any back-down sets? They might, right? In addition, and then they'd roll into deadlift. They'd figure, well, you're rested up. You had the bench in between, so you're rested up, so let's roll. And your deadlift would always suffer because you had squatted first, but that was okay because when you went into competition, your deadlift went up everyone else's because they did it on a separate day, not behind the squat. Their training deadlifts went down. Our training deadlifts always went up in competition because we weren't having to.
And that's how you were training your guys.
When we were training, we were deadlifting 40 minutes after squatting. In competition, you might not deadlift for 2 to 3 hours after you squat, right? Okay. So you're totally rested up. And let me tell you, that makes a big difference. Now, these guys who deadlift on a separate day, they have great training lifts, but because they never pre-fatigue by having to squat first, when they go into competition, that's a shock, right? It's like, oh, wow, okay, right? So we're used to it, they're not. So ours always goes up. But the good news is if you're not that strong, you can finish a hell of a lot faster. Because if you're only working up to whatever 155 pounds in the squat, that don't take very long, right? That's like what, 3-4 sets at the most.
Yeah.
How long does that take? 10 minutes.
But for you guys, you had 5 guys on average maybe that were just killing it, real strong guys. You had to do a lot of warm-ups. On average, what on a Sunday, maybe 2 hours for a session.
3.
About 3 hours?
Yeah, easily. And then they'd order next door for pies. I said, pies? What are you talking about? What do you mean, like pecan, apple? No, pizza. I'm like, oh, okay. They called them pies up there. And
and probably beer too, right?
Yeah, they were saying, Mark, call next door and order some pies. I'm like, what do you mean, like apricot or peach or what? Pies? What? After training, is that what you guys do up here, right? And I said, no, you dummy. Pizza. All right, well, good. And they had a pizzeria right next door to the gym. Now, is that not convenient?
That's perfect.
I love that gym. The Muscle Factory in West Haven, Connecticut. I've never been there. It's probably not around anymore, is it? No. It closed down while I was up there. It was a sad. Everybody was suicidal. They had insane wiffle ball games out back at the gym. Oh yeah, they'd have like, 10 or 15 giant guys in these wiffle ball games on parking lot, knocking each other down and stuff and cussing, and neighborhood kids are coming over and they're every foul word. And he said, Kenny, you shouldn't cuss in front of the kids. They say, oh, it's nothing they haven't heard before.
And then that was your cardio.
Yeah. Oh, but they took their wiffle ball serious. It was blood on the wiffle ball field. I saw that more than once. Oh, they were whacking each other with the bats. Oh, it was terrible.
So listen, talk about the difference between, Arnold was a volume.
Oh my God.
Or anything, but talk about the difference between the training strategies. I mean, Arnold did somewhere around 700 sets a week, where Karwoski would do like 70 sets a week. And I would imagine that's counting warm-ups and all that. So kind of talk about the difference between the two.
Ricky Wayne put out the great bodybuilding book. What was it called? 3 More Reps. Back in the early 70s, and what he did was he outlined exactly the training routines used by the champion bodybuilders of the time. He had them all in there: Columbo, Schwarzenegger, Zane, who else? Robbie Robinson, Menser, what was his? Ed Corney, right? And it was like 6 guys, and it'd be a little bio of the bodybuilder, but then it would be his exact day-by-day routine. So it's a gold mine for a guy like me who writes articles on that kind of stuff, right? So you just go in there and, oh, look, it's Arnold Schwarzenegger. And this is when he was at his absolute peak, right? So I went to the trouble to, because he was training 6 days a week, twice a day. So I went to the trouble to add it all up, and it came to something like, 742 sets every week. But he was there 6 days a week, twice a day. He'd come in for a morning session and do, calves and a body part. Then he'd come back in the afternoon for his main session. And, he trained for like 2 hours with Dave Draper. You know what I mean? Right, but he did that 6 days a week, and they would train body parts 3 times a week, so you'd be squatting 3 times a week, doing chest 3 times a week, doing shoulders 3 times a week. I mean, it was like, unpaid manual labor, right? I mean, it was like a job, a job.
Yeah, it was, and I think at that point, they had jobs early on. They were doing what they had him and Columbo had a brick masonry business or something, and Arnold was going to college and doing different things. But I think after a while, that was their thing, that was their job, and they were able to do that. But I mean, for the normal human being, there's no time like that. We're out pounding the streets trying to make a buck. So that doesn't work for a lot of people. Plus, man, the burnout factor on that many reps and twice a day training, 6 days a week, man, you would get burned out. Now, those guys were young. They were fired up. They were competing.
They were training under a fallacy. There was this belief that the orthodox belief was if you did not train a muscle every 36 hours, it degraded. It went backwards,
right.
Okay?
Yeah.
And it was like, that's not true, right? Finally, they figured it out. I said, no, that's not true. That's bullshit. So, all of a sudden, that freed up guys like Cassidy. Hugh immediately, he trained all the major lifts twice a week, really hard, and that was brutal. Then the next iteration was when guys like Cone and Mark Chalet and Mark Dimmoduck, Doug Furness, everybody cut back to once a week where they would train the 3 lifts, but they'd spread it out. They'd have one day maybe squat and bench, and then a second day, deadlift and overhead press. Throwing some arms, that would basically be it. But that would be the classical uh, we would call low volume, high intensity power template.
Right. Now,
Big,
then we look
big
at
difference.
a guy like Karwoski. Now, if you've seen him in some of his videos in his prime, like 1994, go on YouTube. For anybody that hasn't seen it, go on YouTube and type in Karwoski beach video. It's Kirk pretty much at his peak in 1994. He takes a week off, takes a beach vacation with some of his pals. And this is one of the thickest dudes you've ever seen. And this is all on, 70 sets or less a week. He's one of the thickest dudes you've ever seen. And at the time, he was one of the strongest guys in the world. He's got a world record squat and all that. So it's interesting the difference between the very low volume minimalistic approach compared to the volume approach that a lot of the bodybuilders did. And I think Kirk was every bit as thick. Now they had different body types and all that, and Kirk was a lot shorter. But I mean, thick, muscular wise, I think he was every bit as thick as Arnold, pretty much, and certainly a lot stronger. So something to consider. We talk about Occam's razor, the shortest way of getting from point A to point B. So, it's something to consider. A lot of people just don't have the time for the volume. Don't discount the once a week training, man, because it works. I mean, this is all proof.
Well, it can be. It depends. You've got to know what you're doing. You have to know how to set up your training. You have to understand that you have to have some variation of the squat. You don't even necessarily, if you're like an average person, it's not critical that you even barbell squat. You could use a kettlebell squat or a plate squat to probably give you pretty much all you could handle. I know when I was squatting let's say I was doing 315 for 5, ultra deep, of course no suits or wraps or belts. 80 pound dumbbell held under my chin in a goblet squat I could only squeeze out 6 reps. So the point being that even for a guy who's strong, you can get a really good leg workout if you know what you're doing with goblet squats.
Well, yeah, exactly. And, as well as using all the other tools in the toolbox, like intensity enhancers and things like that. You and I were talking yesterday. I go to a local gym out here, and I was talking to a guy about intensity enhancers the other day, because I was doing, what was I doing? I was doing legs or back or chest or something. And he's like, what the hell is that? And I don't see anybody doing this. At my gym I go to, it's an epidemic of quarter reps and half reps and,
well, do you understand that you can handle more weight that way? I don't know if you're aware of that.
Yeah, I mean, it looks great. Put 3 wheels on each side.
I know.
But just look away when the guy starts to go down, because he's only going quarter of the way.
Yeah, and if, God forbid, he accidentally goes an inch too low, then it collapses on him. I've seen it over and over because they have no protection. The partial reppers, if they get 1, millimeter too far gone, at some point the whole deck of cards collapses. So yeah, I know that epidemic. But listen, let me just swing it back because I want to finish making the point. Is that the point was being that the squat is sort of the fundamental lift, but you do not necessarily even have to resort to the barbell to get optimal squat benefits. You can use the kettlebell, you can use a plate to create the requisite payloads and the intensity necessary for growth. So that's the squat. In addition, you need to do some sort of a bench press, right? For the most basic, we love dumbbell benches. particularly dumbbell benches with pauses and hard lockouts and full range of motion and not exploded. We want to take the explosion out of the movement initially. Not necessarily a grind, but we want a slowed rep speed. And then the deadlift. Great entry point for proper deadlifting is the kettlebell deadlift because you can put it between your legs, right? And it's an easier position for beginning deadlifters to be able to understand the biomechanics, because both in the squat and the deadlift we want the vertical shins, right? We want the upright torso, and it takes practice. You've got to play with your stance width in order to be able to achieve that correct body position. More than likely, you're going to be very weak. When you find that, that's because you normally don't live your life out there. You don't do things out with. It's going to be some sort of a wide stance position, both in your squat and your deadlift. You're going to have a narrow stance, but you're going to have to play with your body position. All together, you can get through this if you have, let's say, four sets of squats, 4 sets of benches, 4 sets of deadlifts, right? You're just a normal person. You're working up to a top set where the perfect set concludes with a barely completed rep, right? You don't have to fail with a rep. We're not asking that, but you want to barely complete the final rep. Then you've worked to 100 or 102% of your capacity. You know that you've provoked a hypertrophy response, right? You're not going to trigger the adaptive response or hypertrophy with sub-maximal effort. Where's the stimulus for the body to do that? That doesn't make sense.
That's the biggest thing I see at any commercial gym I go to. Everybody fluttering around from one machine to the other, which is great. But I guess it's great in the sense that at least you're getting there and you're moving and but nobody's going to failure. Nobody's making grimacing faces on the. Everybody's like, oh, that's cool. I'll do 10 quick ones and get up and move to the next one.
And I might add, no one's body is changing.
That's the thing.
They all stay the same. They are staying the
same. It's not easy.
No, they are all staying the same.
What I gotta say is the best side effect to everything that you're preaching, and that's the full range of motion. That's the changing things around and removing the explosion and
making light weights heavy.
Longevity is the best side effect of all this, and let's face it. I'm getting older. Everybody's getting older, and once you hit your 30s, and certainly you go into your 40s and 50s, you're thinking about, okay, I just want to be healthy. I want to be able to move around.
How do you define healthy? I think healthy is so fuzzy. You know what you want to retain? You want to retain function. That's what you want to retain. Function. Function.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And if you're doing all these things combined, your joints stay healthy. You're not hunched over. Your back is healthy.
You're strong. You're strong. You're capable.
Yeah, and like I say all the time, what are you, 85 now?
I don't want to get into me. I don't want to get into my specifics. But I will say this.
No,
I will say this. No. I will say this. Use it or lose it.
That's right.
Yeah. Now, let's get back.
You're a prime example because you were
I'm a bad example.
900-pound squatter at one time?
No. I'm a bad example because I'm not. Actually, I'm a good. Oh, I'm very mobile. I'm a good example that strength training overcomes a multitude of sins. It's a good thing. Right. So now look, let's spin back to the minimalism on the training because I want to finish.
Let's talk about splits.
Yeah, I think that the the minimum of the minimum is that if your time and life and circumstance force you into one time a week training, understand that if it's handled right, you can make gains. But you have to compensate with intensity. You have to put out on the top set of each of the three exercises. We have four. We also like the overhead press, but we find if we're doing everything in the same day, the three lifts alone are pretty much all a person can handle. Right?
Yeah.
It's pretty intense. So, and besides, you're getting pretty good front delt and tricep work in the bench. So we just let the overhead press go in the interest of making things more compact. So you squat, bench, and dead. I tell you, to this day, when I meet the guys on Sunday, that's what they do. They squat, they bench, they dead. I watch them, right? They get me there as the coach, and maybe Kirk is there or Bob is there, and we critique them after their sets and hone them on their technique. And that's the way these guys are training, because these guys are in the same boat. They're training one time a week, and they are morphing their bodies. I mean, there's no doubt about it. They have improved substantially to a man. And again, we're done. Our group swells and contracts, depends on the season, and depends on a lot of things. But we can have as few as, 7 or 8 lifters. We can have as many as 20, right? So it can, so we're doing that all the time. But we always get through in 3 hours or less. And with most times we're done in 2 hours. And that's with everybody kind of taking their time. And everybody works through. This is more than 5 or 6. Everybody works through, and everybody else watches, and there's no texting, and there's no private conversations going on. Everybody's watching who it is that's lifting, which puts the lifter on the spot. That's what we want. We want to raise their game. And you got to be able to hang, and you got to be serious, but you only have to be serious one day a week. And when they are, and when they do it, and when they do what they're told, and it seems miraculous. But I mean, these guys are, they look great, and they're just dudes from the neighborhood.
You lock the doors and they're done. They go home.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, whatever. That's it. I mean, they might stick around and do arms. They might not.
So talk about. Okay, so you're gonna have people that don't have to condense it all into one single day. So if you're gonna talk about that.
Okay, well, classically, what happens is the guys go, "Well, I don't have to. I've got a couple 3 days. Can I spread it out?" And you go, "Yeah, you can do that. Sure." If you have 3 days, the classic power split is on day 1, you knock the hell out of legs, right?
Mm-hmm.
What are you going to do? Are you going to squat? Yeah, okay, great. Okay, are you going to do any kind of hamstring work? Oh, okay, great, do that. Are you going to do any kind of calves? Well, all right, great, do that. So you do those. That's day 1. Day 2, you come in and you do chest and triceps, right? Or chest and arms, right? That's day 2. And then day 3, you come in and you do deadlift and some sort of overhead press. Nice. That's nice. That's a nice split. That's a beautiful split right there, man. You got, you put the squat and the deadlift at opposite ends of the training week. That's nice. You got the bench press in the first push position. You've got the overhead press in the second push position. I like that. And that's a great classic 3-day split. I think Kirk used a 4-day split. I don't know. Yeah, you think he had a 4-day split. Kirk had a heavy incline day. And man, he was strong at those things. He was like doing 445 for 5, crazy. And and he wasn't really particularly into it. I mean, he was just like, I have to do this assistance work. Okay. But I think he was a 4-day split. Eddie Cohn, I'm pretty sure Ed was a 5-day split. But Ed would he did a lot of bodybuilding movements, He was doing chins, weighted chins, and dips where guys had to stand on his feet to keep him from launching into the air. you know, and I think he had a light bench day, and you know, he had that going on. So, but it was a spread out. If you boiled it down, they were doing squat, bench, dead, and most of the guys were doing some sort of either an overhead press or an incline press. You know, it was like the fourth major exercise. They were fitting that in.
But they were still doing the core exercises once a week, even though they were going.
Oh yeah. No one was no one was deadlifting 4 times a week. You know, no one was dead. Doug Furness told me. Doug's mentor was Dennis Wright, who was a world champion and a great squatter. I saw Dennis Wright squat 800, weighing 200, and he was 50 years old. And he was about 5'4", and he just was built perfect. I mean, this guy was like, oh yeah, and he had like a 500 bench. It was just great. This guy was great, and that was Doug Furness's powerlifting mentor. And what happened was that Doug had to cut down. As Dennis had him squatting twice a week, they'd come in and they'd do their power session, and then midweek he'd have them come in and they'd all do like, I don't know, 5 sets of 5, right? With the, you know, no, and he said it was just killing us. He said initially we made gains when we were young and coming up, but at some point it just was killing us. He said when we, and Dennis called it the light day, right? 5 sets of 5 with some incredible poundage. So I said when we dropped the light weight, he said bang. He said that's when everything took off, because now they were recovering. Because if you're squatting and deadlifting, you are working a lot of the same muscles, right? You're working the erectors, you're working the glutes, you're working the abs. Hey, a squat or a deadlift is ab-centric, buddy.
Yeah.
Right? Upper quads.
So this is, you know, the ability to do splits, to condense it all into one day, to split it and do 2, 3, 5 days, whatever. It's expandable and contractible according to what your schedule is.
That's it. And your needs and your wants and your life and your circumstance. But if you could push to it, man, you can make some damn good gains on once a week. But you have to.
Military, now you train a lot of the military. They love that.
Yeah, that's originally why they came to me, is because they needed a minimalistic program, something that they could do, because when they have so many skill sets they've got to keep up, right? They got to be able to parachute and, you know, scuba dive and what else? Shoot guns, different types of guns, and then hand fight, keep their hand fight, you know, their knife fighting skills up, and then don't forget the ground skills, and then, you know, then they got to run, and you know what I mean? It's just never ending. How many different skills they have to stay on top of, and they go, we understand the need for strength training, we want to strength train, but we don't have any damn time. What do you got? I said, well, we've got something for you. And our system wasn't pared down for their benefit. It just happened to be short already. Right.
Yeah.
And we had a lot of guys who made great progress on this once a week training. We knew that it worked, and we knew that that was the ultra core basic. And now when they got deployed, they said, now when we're deployed, we have all the time in the world. Hey, we want to spend a lot more time training because we're bored out of our minds, and we've got a nice facility, and we're in the mountains of the desert, right? And then they have all the time in the world. So that's when we have like a guy like Jim Steele go, all right, Jim, give him a volume. Give him some volume, and then like an accordion, like you were talking about. Now he'll have the core lifts, but with each core lift, he'll have assistance work. So with the squats, now all of a sudden we're going to do whatever leg curls, or I don't think we would do any more thigh work. I don't think we'd do any hack squats or anything like that. But I think all of a sudden you'd be doing leg curls and calf raises. Maybe some Romanian deadlifts, something like that, right? So that's, that. And then on the bench day, you expand it, and you could go, okay, well, now we're going to do wide grip and narrow grip benches in addition to working up to the competition grip, or we're going to do multiple top sets, 4 sets of 4 or whatever, the deadlift, we're going to do some rack work, in addition to, right? And the guys are like, yeah, that's great. Because they have the time, and again, they're looking to fill that time, right?
Yeah.
So again, it's like an accordion. It's big, and then they come back stateside, and it's like, we have to keep up on all this stuff, and it's a crazy pace.
But the key to making any of this work, no matter if you're doing it once a week, you're doing a split, you're doing volume, you're doing minimalistic work, the key is effort and exertion and just intensity. And you always say 102% effort. I mean, that's what it's going to take for any of this stuff to work.
Yeah, and you can do that without killing yourself. If you finish a rep, and if you know you don't have another one, you're done. You've done your job. You've done your job.
You always say failure -1.
Correct. Yeah. I don't have another. You're done. Bag it. Bench it. Rack it.
And that's really good advice, because that does what? It keeps you from getting injured.
Yeah. Now, if you have spotters, then if you have spotters, then it's like, you know what, I'm going to give it a shot, because you're okay. But if you're alone, just like, that's it. I did that one, or you start it and you say, nah, I can't do it. You've done your job. You've done 100%. You've done more than 100%. You don't know. I mean, when you've done all you can do, you get the gold star. You've done 100%, and that can shift. You can be. I mean, on a literal scale, you can be stronger and give less, and then on weaker days you can give 102%, right?
Right.
And it's the days that you exceed capacity that's what triggers the adaptive response and hypertrophy and all the good stuff. Doesn't occur anything less. Why would it?
Yeah. And it's uncomfortable. It hurts. But
you have to be careful. It doesn't hurt. It's just
it hurts in a good sort of way, not a joint pain type
not
of
even
way.
good. It's discomfort. It's not pain. Yeah. It's not pain. It's discomfort. And it's like, well, how long or how deep can you get into this? Over time, your discomfort, what do you call it? Your discomfort tolerance. Yes, exactly, increases, right? Because you experience it more. The lactic acid, and it's the whole thing, the burn, whatever. The ability to, I have another rep. It's not comfortable, but I tell you, if you do use technique, if you stay within your technical perfect groove, it keeps you safe, and you just don't have another one, and you're done. And it's over, and it's safe, and it's finished, right?
Yeah.
And it works. So that's what we do, right? And you can do that. You can always do that.
I think that's a lot of information. Now, we're going to come back next week. This was once a week strength training part 1. We're actually going to have, this is such a great topic. It's an interesting topic that I know a lot of other people are interested in. So we're going to do a part 2 next week. Now, you've currently got an article on ironcompany.com. It's called Once a Week Strength Training. Just go to the articles button at the top of the site. Click on that. Go to Raw with Marty Gallagher, and you'll see it right there. Once a Week Strength Training, Part 1. A lot of what we covered today is in there, but it's a really good read. We're going to launch Part 2 next week, and then we'll come and follow up on the podcast and cover some of the rest of the stuff. So we've always got articles going up on Iron Company. We've always got this podcast here, along with all the others that we do, is all archived. You can go to the bottom footer of our website and check and click on podcast Primitive book. We were talking about this before. What's interesting? This is a great book that everybody that's a weightlifter or whatever should really consider purchasing. But what would you say about your book to get somebody fired up to go buy it?
Well,
sorry to put you on the spot, but there's probably so many
it's about
things. It's hard to pick one, but
it's about 10 mentors that I cross paths with to varying degrees, and it's guys I had interaction with that were they were kind of giants in their field, but I think most of them were powerlifters, bodybuilders, weightlifters. I had 2 brain trained guys. I had 2 nutrition guys and 1 cardio, right? 1 cardio mentor. And these were men that I'd cross paths with. And there were some heavy damn hitters in there, I talked to Paul Anderson before he died. He died early. I can't remember how old, 54 or something like that, of Bright's disease. But when I was working at Muscle and Fitness, I'd call him up and we'd talk about training. So, and he was bored, you could tell. He was in a wheelchair, right? But Marty Gallagher talked. I had his phone number down in my personal book. It's just like, call up Paul.
That's really cool.
Call up Paul Anderson and talk. And I talked to him. We talked. He told me about, in '68, if he'd got his amateur standing back, he pretty sure he would have won the Olympics. And he told me the lifts he was doing. I was like, yeah, well, you damn well would have. He was something at his peak.
Yeah, and a lot of these guys in the book, in Purposeful Primitive, you give kind of their backgrounds and what they did, and you even, like I'm looking at Dorian's page right now, on page 83. You go through his entire routine and show exactly what he was doing, what exercises, how many sets, how many reps.
You know what I liked about Dorian? You know where he got his weight training start?
Where?
Reform School.
Oh yeah, that's right.
You gotta love that kid, right?
Yeah. Yeah, he's an interesting guy, but he's in there, Kirk's in there, Paul Anderson's in there. You're just talking about. So go out and check out the book. If, like I said, if you're a bodybuilder, powerlifter, just a weightlifter, CrossFitter, it's a very interesting read. It's very insightful.
Indeed.
And then if you're looking for some additional help on any of your lifts or gaining muscle or just basic strength training or whatever, or you're a competitor and you'd like to check out some online training, call Marty Gallagher or Kirk Karwoski. They're on our athletes page at ironcompany.com, and you can reach out to them and maybe hook up with them. I know, Marty, you're online training people pretty much all over the world. Yep. You got a few spots left open.
Yep, I work with Austrian world champion climbers and just the most interesting array of people. But I always work with all levels because I absorb the input, and it's like an ongoing science experiment, right? We're evolving all the time. So please, if you're motivated, regardless your level, we'd work with you, and I would work with you directly. It's not like you're going to get handed off to some subordinate.
No, it's you direct, and you're assessing video clips that they send you of their squat and bench and all that. You're critiquing and.
Yeah, it's the camera, the phone makes it all possible. It's like they can put me in their training environment for the top set, which is the set that matters, and I can tell their technique. I tell them where to place the camera, the whole thing, and we have it down to a science now, and we periodize them. We have them everybody is, they have goals, and the goals are set in a time frame. So, you know, then they check in with me, boom. We don't necessarily talk about it as much as look at it. And you can draw your own conclusions, right? How hard it was, how difficult it was. I pick up so much technical stuff. I can make so many corrections because I can stop the tape and I can run it back. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's amazing the era that we live in. So yeah, if you're truly motivated, contact me somehow. Send me a smoke signal.
Maybe I'll take you up on that. I could use some pointers.
Okay, well now wait a minute.
And for all your gym equipment needs, like strength equipment, free weights, cardio, rubber gym flooring, anything you guys need, please visit ironcompany.com.
The Kirk
We've been
bar.
around since 1997.
Don't forget the Kirk bar.
Kirk got a beautiful
Blue.
power bar. Check it out.
It's blue.
Just type in Karwoski power bar and you'll find it. It's a good value. It's a heck of a bar, American made. Check it out. And then, and that's it. So next week we will be back with part 2 of once a week strength training. Over and out.
Thank you.